Yeah. So we're starting with our cucumbers, and I am just prepping them up and getting them cut in half and then in half again. So cut your halves, hold it with the two halves cut, and then come back up to about the same spot and try and come back through again. Hold your cucumber while you cut it. It makes it a little easier. So you've got your open cucumber. That one's, get rid of the end on that one. Okay, and so like I was saying, if you have a really long cucumber, cut it in half first and then do your slices so that you don't end up cutting, you don't want to cut this in half because then you have your pieces. So you're trying to keep it together as one, because what we'll do in the end is to stuff this with all of our good inside yummy ingredients. So with this, you should have an S container. That is the salt. So we're going to sprinkle that on our cucumbers. We're going to just try and get it inside the cucumbers. There's not a perfect way to do this. Just incorporate inside the cucumbers. And we can sprinkle it on and we'll kind of mix it up a little bit and then we'll let them sit. And then eventually we'll rinse them off, but right now we can let them sit in the salt, okay? Then what we can do is, while these are sitting and waiting, so they're close to evenly salted. Again, it's pretty much trying to get that, the edges and interior coated, okay? So I'll set that aside. While I'm waiting for that, I'm gonna get the rest of my ingredients set up. So I have Asian chives, which are all of your green chives, and you can rinse them off, make sure they're cleaned up, and then we're going to try and cut these in about an inch. Was that a half-inch pieces? So let me move my, yes. Yes. So these are green onions. These are also known as scallions. And there is a green onion that's similar to this that is known as chives as well. But these are actually Asian chives that we're using for the kimchi. So the green onions will have your roots at the end, and they're a much thicker, they're more of a tube type of a plant versus these are definitely not tubes. They're more of a reed style of a leaf, okay? So let's get this into half-size chops. Oops. And again, you can cut them all together. That makes it a little bit easier for you. Okay. I didn't go all the way to the bottom. I'll leave that up to you. I'm going to leave kind of the ends. Those get a little bit more fibery tough. So keeping that, the tops is definitely the softest part. So we're going to put this into a bowl. I'm going to go ahead and put these into a bowl. And I'm going to have the carrots. So that was our Asian chives. And then you have a bag of carrots. There's one that has a C on it. So make sure you pick the one with the C. That will be for your cucumbers. You can drain it. There's probably a little bit of water. And so one of my thought processes for you is to know what julienne is. So julienne is also a very thin cut version of a carrot or anything. So if you ever see a recipe that says julienne vegetables, this is what they're looking like. And so I put it on a Post-it note too, just so you can get a good visual. This is a 3-inch Post-it note. So if we look at a really fine julienne, we're looking at a really fine line here. So it's super thin. compared to a 1/4 inch would be considered the regular julienne cut. So these are pretty close to a regular julienne. And they're usually about 2 to 3 inches long. So right on the money for our, this is a 3-inch Post-it note. So we're right. Our person that created all of our carrots, Kelly, did a fabulous job with creating the julienne. Now she didn't do it by hand. We have a mandolin, but this you can do with a chef's knife as well. Okay. So we saved you the step of julienning your carrots. So we're going to mix the carrots. We're going to mix the onions. We're going to put the chili pepper in there. We're going to put our garlic in there. So your whole entire, now if you want to back off on spiciness, you can back off on how much chili pepper you put in these chili flakes. Again, the final recipe that we created earlier wasn't as spicy as you would expect, but if you don't like real spicy food, you can break this probably even in half or take out a little bit. So we're going to add that in there. We're going to also add our garlic. So you should have your minced garlic. We're going to add that in there. We're going to add the fish sauce. So your fish sauce should be in a container that says fish, of all things. So fish sauce will go in there. There's 3 tablespoons of that, and then a tablespoon of sugar. Okay, and then you'll have water. So 1/4 cup of water. All right. And we're going out, and we can also add our sesame seeds. So you should have, you're actually going to have 2 containers of sesame seeds. So this is the one that is, okay, came with your bag that had the sugar, the chili powder, and maybe the garlic or the packages. So look for that one in your recipe book, or in your baggie, and then put that in here as well. Now, mix this up, and we're going to let it sit. So those flavors are going to combine. Again, if you are looking at that less chili, then you have a little bit less in there. Okay. All right. So we can let that sit for a minute. We're going to rinse off our cucumbers. Oh, and I got to get my onion. Woo, that's what we're missing. We're missing an onion. So in addition to the chives, we're going to do our onion. So what I recommend, because remember, this is we're not dicing it this time. This is the first recipe we haven't had to dice with. If you use your lines of your onion, that will make it a little easier to get that fine slice. So just start however it's comfortable for you. You could cut it into a 1/4 and then do your slices. You can take off the end. I'll take off the end because I need to get that full slice. And then we're looking as close to a very thin slice as possible. So we want to do a really nice thin slice. And again, it's truly how thin you can get it without going, or how, you remember, it's what you put in, what you bite into is what your consistency will be. All right. Okay. So we want to get as close to that edge as possible. Sometimes turning it around now. We'll do the other side. So we kind of make them, they're almost kind of lacy just because of the fact they're nice. They're really thin. And if your onion starts to break apart, we can actually safely slice it if you wanted to even put it on your cutting board and go across. You can do that, start that. If they start getting too thin, you can stop there and you've got a good slice. But I've got a few that are left. I can slice them by themselves. So we're just gonna go as thin as you possibly can with safety. Okay. The other thing I did was I actually took them and cut them in half again so that they're not these long pieces that you're gonna bite into. So I actually took it and did one more slice just to make it easy for us to get in. So here's your nice thin slices of onion. We're gonna mix that in as well. All right. How's everybody doing? And hopefully you're not crying too much from your onions. Okay, so we'll mix that up. So first question, what's the difference between fermented vegetables and pickled vegetables? Because this is actually a fermented type of vegetable dish. What's the difference between fermented and pickled? Both of them will keep the longevity of your vegetable, but one of them is definitely different. Does anybody know what the difference between pickled and fermented is? Plus we have this beautiful color. Okay. All right. Now we're ready to get the cucumbers together. So Jesse, did anybody guess what the pickling? I'll let that one sit out there for a little bit. I'll give you the answer. Yeah, so fermenting is bacterial and pickling is soaking it in an acidic liquid. So there's a difference between the two. And obviously we're doing a fermented version where we're getting the bacterial count going up. So when we talk about fermented foods, they keep your foods longer, but also we've known, if anybody knows Dr. Solange now, she did a whole, her studies were on probiotics and fermentation and how it is for the gut. So probiotics. So we do know that fermented foods are really good for our gut. And so that's the difference between pickling. So pickles also use cucumbers, but this time we're fermenting them with the bacterial. Yes. So pickling is also preserving, it's to help the shelf life. You continue the shelf life. It's not as healthy as, let's say, the fresher ingredient version if you had cucumbers. So it truly is just to preserve. And if you think about pickled mango, that's a real popular dish here. So pickled foods will help you preserve for the long time. And that's why people made kimchi long ago, was they had to figure out a way to keep their vegetables from going bad throughout the whole winter when they didn't have them. So they created fermenting. The beginning started with fermenting cucumbers and allowing them to keep for the rest of the year. But the pickling is, like I said, is more of a flavor slash preservative. So not quite the same health benefit that you get with fermented. So, and of course, go ahead. Salting them brings out some of that liquid. It also tenderizes them a little bit. They're a little softer, but it's also flavor too. So then we're also starting that bacterial beginning. So when we start layering this into there, that salt is helping with that bacterial beginning. Okay. So what we're going to do, because this is chili powder, remember, so it's pretty spicy. It could irritate your hands. That's why we gave you a glove. So we're going to stuff this into our cucumbers now. And we'll put them onto a plate. That way we can set it together. So really, you're basically looking at that is your finished product so that you can put together the rest. Okay, so you're looking at, that's a stuffed spicy cucumber kimchi. So we created, thank you, Amber. So now we have 1 cucumber. So that's what you're looking for. Okay. So I'll go ahead and stuff the rest of these. You want to use up all your good stuff here. So don't hesitate to fill it. If you have extra laying around, that's just going to be great for your edible convenience as well. Okay. All right. So pretty color. This is a great colorful dish too, if you consider all the red and green. So kimchi, historically, 3,000 years ago was when it was kind of first began, where they actually did chopped cucumbers and they fermented them after they were marinated. So today, one of the most common kimchis is done with cabbage versus cucumbers, but they did start 3,000 years ago with cucumbers. That's where it started. So there is your, we put a lot onto one plate. So it's pretty crammed into there. But again, here is your stuffed spicy cucumber kimchi, okay? So fermented, again, a fermented version of a Korean side dish. And again, you can season it with red chili pepper, garlic, ginger, scallions, salt. Remember that salt is what's kicking off that bacterial connection. So we have that nice. And then again, here is our final, after we've plated it, final dish. And also we did sprinkle a few more sesame seeds on top. So if you didn't mix all your sesame seeds in, you could put a little bit more on top. All right. How we doing? I'm gonna change cutting boards. And we are going on to japchae. Is everybody ready? All right. So you'll have your mushroom that has sat. Now, if you have some oil and salt at home, you might want to have a little bit of extra oil for the pan, for the saute time frame, so that you have that available. And then we'll also do the little bit of salt, okay? So I'm gonna grab all my ingredients. I'll move all these around. This one takes a lot of bowls. So be ready for some extra bowls in the kitchen. And let me get all my ingredients. So what we're gonna start with is, I wanna start you off on your slicing and dicing, or slicing, not dicing. So we're gonna move my garlic down. Okay, so have your onion ready. So we're shooting for another sliced onion. But actually, before we start that, we want to actually cut your, if you soaked your shiitake mushroom, that one should be ready. If it's not, hot water will help bring that moisture up. So if you want to put it in warmer water, you can. So we're going to slice this. You can get rid of the stem. Well, if you can't pull it out, leave it. But the stem is usually really fibery. So what people do frequently is take the stem out, and then they can put it into a broth and create a nice stock. So it still has great flavor. It's just more fibery, a little bit chewier than the tops. Okay. So it's going to be a little bit tough to get out. These are dried, of course, so it's not going to want to come out. So let's slice it nice and thin. Now, shiitake mushrooms are grown where it's nice and wet, and also humid conditions. So if you have the desire to do your own fresh shiitake mushrooms, I would say Hawaii was a good opportunity to try it, because we live in a nice climate where we've got all the components of humidity and wet. Okay, so I'll put those back into my dish. And these also have, they also contain some amino acids that you'd find in meat. So it would be an alternative, semi-alternative for a meat product. And if you want to add meat, you're welcome to add meat to this recipe too. If you have beef sitting on hand, you're welcome to add that. We just didn't do that for all the students for your packages, but you're welcome to add that in as well. In your red cup, you're gonna find a container that says mush on it. And that is what we're looking for. So it has, this is the pepper, the garlic, the sugar, the oil, the soy sauce. So you're gonna mix this with your mushrooms, and then we're gonna let it sit in the refrige. So you should smell that yummy sesame oil too. Okay. Borrow another wooden spoon. Okay. So we're gonna mix that up a little bit and create that. Again, your meat would be in here as well. So if you're using meat, you can mix your meat in here and let that soak up. And it's basically you're creating a marinade. And then we can put that in the fridge. So your shiitake mushrooms are ready to sit for a little bit until we're ready to cook them. Okay. So put that aside. Then we're gonna get your onions and your green onions ready, your white onion. We've got carrots ready. We've got other mushrooms ready, and we're gonna get our bell pepper. So this is where your julienne style on some of these will come in, but we're also gonna do that really nice thin cut again on our onion. So go for that. Again, it's how much you wanna taste at one time. So go for that thin cut. Follow your lines again. And this one, it's up to you if you wanna cut it in half. And as you go around, you can sometimes actually even it out so it's more squared. So the difference when you cut it with the lines is it makes it easier to break apart versus if you do it against the lines, you don't have quite that same outcome of that laciness. So that's why I always encourage people to cut it with the lines. It'll help your end result. Okay, and I'll do another slice here. This dish is actually just known as vegetables with noodles and saute or stir fry. So again, you can do the meat added in as well. If you choose to leave the meat out, you can actually use more shiitake mushrooms. Add to your mushrooms. Okay, so that is ready to go. And I'm gonna let those sit on my cutting board. I'm gonna get my green onions, also remember known as scallions. So I'm gonna get those. And I'm gonna cut these, try and line them up. Will help you. And wash them off. And I can tell you that when you're at the store, whoops, and you're buying green onions, if you ever see them really long like this, that tells you that these were grown locally, that they're coming local. If you ever see the ones that have their tops cut off like here, that means they're coming from the mainland. So if you ever want to look for fresh local green onions, look for the ones that have that full length top on them. Whoops. And again, if you want, you can keep the bottoms and plant these to grow. You can cut them off inch above, put them in some dirt, and then you're going to end up with some more green onions. So you'll always have a never-ending supply of green onions. Very easy to grow. Okay, so now let's cut these let's cut from the top again. And we're going to shoot for, get rid of some of the extra you have some dark areas or browned areas, you can get rid of that, pinch them off. We're going to cut these into 1 to 2 inch. I think it was 1 to 2 inch cuts. I have to look back on my recipe really quick. 2 inch cuts. So we're going to shoot for, oops. Okay. There we go. If they get too long, then we can cut them in half. All right. Okay, so we kept the tops. The white parts, if you keep the white parts, they're not going to break apart as easily when we are cooking it. So that's why you can leave this and actually grow those, okay? So you can grow those in your backyard or even in a pot. It doesn't even take your backyard a huge space. Okay, now we're gonna slice our red bell pepper. And we're gonna do the julienne as close as we can. So we're gonna try and get as, I'll square it off a little bit. And now I can do my slices. So we're shooting for that 1/4 inch cut. So again, give yourself if you push it flat, that will help you. And then of course, you have to grab it from both sides just to get that last cut if it gets too narrow. Okay. And then you can take this part and we'll separate that out. I'm going to use the whole thing. I'm just trying to make it so that I can get those thinner slices without having to fight with the shape of it. Okay. So red bell pepper, this one's a little big. So what is japchae? If I was to take japchae and I put it into the Chinese world of cooking, what would that be known as? If it was the Chinese version, what would it be considered? Very common dish that I know all of you have probably tried at one time or another. But japchae is also known this in the Chinese cooking. Cut that in half. Does anybody know what that would have been called or what that is? Okay. Your spinach is good. Your carrots again, you can drain out the liquid. So japchae was actually figured out way back in the 17th century, where the Chosun dynasty, one of the King Ji, his last name is more than what I want to shoot for, had created a dish for a royal celebration. So this is what they created. So that's how long it's been around, 17th century. And it was spinach, carrots, mushrooms with the egg garnish. So your mushrooms are ready to go, your carrots, everything is chopped and ready. All we need to do now is start cooking. So we're gonna do your egg first. So did anybody figure out what's the name of the Chinese version of this dish? Okay, I'll let you stew on that one a little bit. This one can be served hot or cold, so you can go either way. Crack an egg. So we're gonna try and separate the egg without losing the yolk and getting it into the whites or cracking the egg yolk. So if you're willing to try, you can crack it and then we're gonna separate it. I'll put my white in here and then I'll keep my yolk for in a different bowl, and we'll be able to use that and create the garnish. Now, if you, for some reason, get your white in there, don't worry, it's not gonna kill your garnish. It just will give it a whiter, a different consistency and color. So we're gonna shoot to open this up without breaking it. And there's a lot of ways to get eggs separated. Does anybody want to share their tricks to separate an egg? So right now I've got it. We're just going to go between the two. And it should be just the egg yolk. Now, it talks about getting rid of the shallots. So this is the shallots, which is that anchor. So I'm going to try and pull it off. And if I can't pull it off, I'm not going to worry too much about it because I don't want my egg yolk to crack in my hand. But you kind of want to try and get rid of that if you can. That's the anchor that anchors the yolk in the middle of the egg for you when you get it home. A fresh egg will definitely have a center location. I can't pull that off, so I'm going to not worry about it. Maybe I can pull it off while it's in the bowl. Never mind. So we're going to leave it just as the yolk. So you have an egg white that you can use to make your egg white omelet tomorrow morning. And now you have your egg yolks. All right. We're going to create our garnish first. So get a saute pan. It doesn't matter what, I always start out, I try and use one pan for everything. So if you have a saute pan that you can use to make your garnish, that's what we'll start with. So separate your egg. We're going to put a pinch of salt with that, and we're going to mix it together with a fork. A pinch of salt I have here. Okay. Pinch of salt. And then I'll mix it up a little bit. Our helpers are grabbing a fork for me. And so it should look nice and yellow. Okay. I guess if you can fish out that shallot still, you can try. There we go. All right. So let's get our pan ready. We are going to add a little bit of oil. So the trick is, here's your vegetable oil. The trick is going to be, we want to heat this up, but we don't want to actually cook the egg with the heat on. So we're going to start it up. We're going to put a teaspoon or so of oil. You can guesstimate your amount needed. So roughly teaspoon, because what we want to do is get the egg in there, but we also can spread this around. So we're going to spread our oil around. We're going to get it hot. So remember how to test for hot is you could, check for water or watch for it to shimmer. So you know it's getting hot. And then with a paper towel, we're going to remove most of that oil so that it's not too greasy, because we don't want a fried egg, but we want to have it so it doesn't stick to the bottom. So we'll just get this nice and hot. Then we're going to turn off the heat. I'm going to absorb some of my oil and then create my egg garnish. Okay, so we're going to look for that little bit of a shimmer. And it might look like this is a giant pan for one little bitty egg, but it helps to save your dishes, right? So you don't have to do 5 pans, 5 bowls. Let's get this up nice and hot. Okay. And I have reached heat. So I have a gas stove. So again, it's nice and hot. Should feel a little bit of, we can check it by, I could drop in just a little bit of egg. See if we can get a sizzle. Perfect. Okay. We're going to turn our heat off. Carefully wipe out your oil. And you don't want that greasiness. So wipe your oil. And while it's still hot, put your egg in there. And because this is a nice, bright, if you were lucky and got your egg yolk just by itself, it's super bright yellow. And that's the whole purpose, is we're creating a garnish. So it creates a nice yellow appearance of a garnish. Okay. So that's cooking for roughly a minute. And then we'll flip it over with that extra heat that's still there. We can allow it to cook. And then we're going to cut it. So it kind of looks like, remember how pancakes will bubble up? The egg is, you'll be able to see that it's firmed up some. So once you get that nice firm, flip it over. Okay. Let that cook for about a minute, and then we'll take it off the heat and put it on a plate. And then it'll be ready for us to cut up and make a garnish. Okay. Thank you. All right. How's the success of eggs? Did we get lucky? All right. There we go. Look how bright that is. I mean, this is nice white plate, but that's your garnish. So you can see the color pops out and will show up on our japchae at the end. So we're going to set that aside. And here comes the fun part of all our other ingredients. So now we're going to do your noodles. So these are your noodles, and these are sweet potato noodles. So my question for you is, there is sweet potato starch and water. So is there any, if I have a gluten intolerance, can I have these noodles? And my answer would be by yes, you can, because there is no wheat gluten in them. So they are strictly sweet potato starch and water. There's no wheat. So we're going to get our water boiling because our spinach will come first. And then we will do those noodles. So you can have them both ready. Okay, so we're going to get our pot of water ready. Have your bag of spinach ready to go. Chow mein. Very similar dish. It's just a Korean version of chow mein. So, and again, hot or cold. So they consider it the Korean version of Chinese chow mein. That's where the two came together. All right, good shot at that one. What else do I have? A little bit more on the sweet potato noodles is that they are lower glycemic index because they're more complex carbohydrates. So interestingly enough, they have a little bit less of a hit on your sugar load. So that's kind of a nice thing to think about, an alternative to regular noodles, regular pasta. They have about, for every 100 grams cooked, they have about 350 calories, 86 grams. It's still high on carbs. Remember, it's still a carb, but it has a lower glycemic index, and it does have protein in there as well. So my next question is, do sweet potato noodles have cholesterol in them? Would they have cholesterol? Because some of your egg noodles have cholesterol, but would sweet potato noodles have any cholesterol? So that's a thought-provoking question for you. Would they have any cholesterol? They're coming from a sweet potato starch, water, dry it, create the noodles. Would there be any cholesterol? Good. No, right? It's a plant. Where do we find cholesterol? Animals only. So our garnish has cholesterol, but not our sweet potato noodles. Okay. So we're going to let this boil. Once we get to boil, we're going to what we call blanch the spinach. So it's a quick in, quick out, about 30 seconds. We don't want it to become mush. We want it to stay together, but we want to get it so it's soft enough and it's almost a half cooked state. So that's when you know you are done. And so once it starts to boil, you can drop it all in at one time and then go about 30 seconds so that you don't have that mush at the end. If you get to overcook it, it will just disintegrate in your hands when you're handling it. So we're going to shoot for that, not full state cook. Don't dump your water when we finish doing the spinach either. We're going to pull it out so that we can use that water for our noodles. And what benefit you get that way is you're adding the whatever vitamins came out of the spinach can now be associated with your noodles, and it's one less step. So we're waiting for this to boil. As it's waiting, let's think about some other, what are some other probiotics? We talked about the kimchi being a probiotic, but what are some other probiotic foods that we have access to pretty readily? What are some things that are out there for you to purchase? So that's a question I have out there. And again, increasing the gut flora, increasing the digestive system health, and increase that again will turn around and increase the health of your immune system. So we have some good things out there. So does anybody know one? Yogurt. But remember, if you buy yogurt, you've got to look for that live cultures, and not all yogurts have live cultures. So if they don't have them, then you're missing that probiotic bacteria. What else has, what was it? Mead. Oh, like mead wine? Mead. I got to think on that one. Honey, it's created from honey. It's a wine. I would say it could have, possibly. Probably not as available as what most people think about your availability of things and what you'd see in the stores, the regular grocery store, what we'd find that has probiotics in them. Some cheeses do, if they have those probiotic or the live culture. Okay. How about kefir? Has anybody heard of kefir? Sauerkraut, tempeh, kimchi, of course. If you've ever cooked with miso, miso has probiotics. Kombucha, that's a big one. I think we had a very big ramp up of kombucha probably over the last 4 years, 5 years. That's taken off. And a lot of people use that for digestive health. So that's another big opportunity for you to get those. And in pickles, buttermilk, natto, those are all examples. Okay, so my water is getting ready to that boil point, and I'm about ready to add my spinach. Have a slotted spoon ready. Have a container ready so that you can drain it. And that way you can pull it as you need to. So once we get it done, we're gonna pull it out and squeeze the water. So have a bowl ready, have a slotted spoon ready, because again, 30 seconds goes pretty quick. Okay, so let's do our spinach. Oops, I think I lost a leaf. And we'll hit about 30 seconds. So I gotta watch the timer for 30 seconds. We can put it, gonna turn nice and bright on us. So we wanna shoot for 30 seconds. Okay. And again, it shouldn't be falling apart at that point. And this is called blanching. So if you ever buy frozen vegetables, they blanch them. Oh, I must have had a leaf on the. All right, we hit 30 seconds. So I'll turn off my water, my heat, take out my spinach. We're gonna try and drain this at the same time. So you can use tongs if it's easier for you to use tongs to fish out your spinach. You'll put it in a bowl. We're gonna let it cool a little bit, and then we're gonna rinse it so we can stop the cooking process. But as I was mentioning, if you buy frozen vegetables, like you buy frozen corn, frozen peas, frozen okra, whatever it might be, so they blanch it on the site, and then they freeze it. So they blanch it, freeze it, and then it's ready to get to the store. So that's why they always say that frozen vegetables are a little better than canned if you had to choose, because they are picked at the peak ripeness, and not and preserve those nutrients because they're cooked quickly and then they're frozen. So rinse them, put some cold water on them. That'll stop that cooking process. Okay, we're gonna stop that. We're gonna drain them, and you can actually squeeze them. Squeeze it out. Squeeze them. Again, you don't want to super squeeze because then they'll be mushed. So you should have my spinach. You also have a recipe container that has spin on it. We're going to put that in our spinach. That's a mixture of sesame oil and sugar and soy sauce. Okay, mix that. And now we're going to move on to, we're going to set that aside. We're going to move on to cook our noodles. So get your water boiling again. And we'll get that boiling, and you got some nice green water, which means that you cooked your spinach. So we'll get our water boiling, and we are going to add the noodles. Okay, and then we'll cover it and cook it for a minute. And then we're going to stir it. So you want a pair of tongs. Okay, we're going to time that for 1 minute. Okay, now let's get our veggies cooking. So I should have done let's crank up another burner here. I'm going to move so that we can still see. So now I have my saute pan, and I'm going to put it on medium-high heat. So I want it pretty hot. We're going to add our first thing we're going to do is cook the onions. So get a little bit more oil. So maybe a teaspoon of your vegetable oil. Okay. This is where all the fun comes. Now we're going to cook the onions. So both onions, both your white onions and your green scallions. And the reason we cook all these separate is because each of these takes a little bit different time frame to cook, and you don't want to overcook one versus the other. So that's why it's a stir fry that is separate. So we're going to put all our onions together, and we're going to stir fry our onions. It's been 1 minute. So we're going to open up our noodles and stir them and check on them. Stir those up a little bit, and then we're going to time them for 7 minutes. Okay, so now we've got our onions in here, and we're going to get those sauteing so they turn tender. So about 1 to 2 minutes on time. They'll start to turn translucent a little bit. Okay. So we're going to do this we got a pinch of salt to go with it as well. I got to find my salt. Got a little more than that. Okay. Pinch of salt. Get these guys. Ooh, look at my heat's hot. Okay. That's about 1 to 2 minutes. And then we will put those on the side. So again, we're just kind of flash stir frying. We don't want to overcook them. So we will put those in a bowl. Okay, so those are done. Then we're going to get our, next up is your mushrooms. So again, a little more oil. We're keeping our heat on. Now we're going to do our regular mushrooms with your pinch of salt again. So put your mushrooms in, pinch of salt. We're going to let these go for about 2 minutes. They're going to tenderize, get a little softer as they go. So about 2 minutes. Then we'll be ready for the carrots and peppers. So get those ready next. And then also you can pull out your mushrooms that you've been refrigerating, because that's going to be our next thing that we're going to heat up after we get all our veggies. Okay. So our mushrooms are getting nice and soft. Here's what your mushrooms might be looking like. So nicely absorbed all our marinade. Okay. So your mushrooms are getting nice and soft. 1 to 2 minutes. Then we're going to put these in. So we've got this magic bowl, right? Everything goes into the bowl. So now our bowl will have our onions as well as your other mixture there. And we'll set that aside. And we're going to now cook we're going to add the oil. And this is where we're going to do our carrots. And I think I should have put my garlic in there with my onions. I must have. I'm like, where did I miss my garlic? Okay, so get your pan hot. And sorry, our print on this recipe got really small because there's a lot of steps to this recipe. So we're going to do carrots first. So carrots go in about 20 seconds. So don't let them go too long. So I'll watch my time. We'll go 20 seconds. The only reason you get that flame on the side is there's just that little bit of oil that flips up. And then I'm going to add my peppers. And we're going to do those for about 20 seconds. Okay. And then those will go into our magic bowl again. So those are ready to go. So 20 seconds of cooking. We'll put those in our bowl. So now you have your mushrooms, your onions, your peppers and carrots in your bowl. And we are going to do our final fix of this. So we're going to add a little bit of, I got to get a little bit, this is where your oil, extra oil might come in. So I'm going to do about a teaspoon of oil for here. Okay. Then we're going to do our mushrooms. Okay, and we're going to go, this is about 2 minutes. This is, if you had beef in here, you'd want to just make sure that you get your beef cooked to the point of being finished. Okay. While that's cooking, I can bring back my, okay, so half the garlic will go into, half of my garlic, chopped garlic is going to go in with my mushrooms. Ooh, that's a little bit hot. Okay. So I can turn the heat down just a little bit. Here's what you can do with your egg. So your egg garnish, you can roll it, the easy way, roll it up. It should be cool by now. And then you're going to slice it thin. And that will create the garnish for the top. As well as if you could use sesame seeds, you could use more scallions. It really is up to you what you want to put on the top. But this is the traditional version of japchae. Okay, so that creates that nice, look how pretty and yellow that is. Looks like lemon peels, but it's egg yolks. Okay, so that's ready to go. And how much time on our noodles? 30 seconds on my noodles. So again, my mushrooms, guess what? They go back into that magic bowl again. So we can add those to the bowl. And our noodles should be close to be done. Ooh, that's hot. I'll turn off the heat. And they should have a consistency kind of chewy, but not too soft. So we'll drain them. And if we wanted to see what they're looking like, so they have that nice kind of purpley color. So we'll drain them. Okay. And there's your noodles. Now we're going to let those cool just a little bit, and we're going to cut them. So if you have a pair of cooking shears, That way you don't have to get them out and cut them hot. You can cut your noodles into chunks. Okay. And we are ready to combine. We're going to put a little bit more of our, we should have a container that says N-O-O-D, nude, so for noodles. So we're going to add this to our noodles after we put it. I'm going to put it together with, let's see, I got to put it in another bowl. Or I'll mix. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to put our spinach in with our magic bowl of goodies. And then we're going to take our noodles. We're going to put them in here. We're going to toss that with your noodle topper. Okay. Mix those up. And we are going to finalize this with our mix here. Now we're going to create this, and this is our magic. Oh, it smells so good. Okay. So all those veggies cooked really nicely. We're going to put our last, you should have one that says end. You're going to put that on at the very end. Ooh, some of it got a little bit firm in there. That's your sugar. And then we're going to toss that together. You might need something to scrape out your sugar that settled to the bottom a little bit. And they're going to mix it up. Okay, we're going to add our garnish and our garlic, and that will be it. These tongs are like really stiff. They're biting back at me. Okay, so we got our last bit of garlic. Put that on there. And our onion, our garnish of our egg. That got away from us. And there is japchae. So, final product. Ta-da! And you're ready to eat. So again, it can be eaten cold or hot. It's up to you, and you are welcome to enjoy in japchae. So you all created spicy cucumber kimchi and japchae tonight. So welcome to the Korean cooking, and we will see you again next month. Next month, we are looking at Mediterranean food. So we hope to see you again. Have a great weekend. Hey, it's spring break, so have a great week off. Enjoy, relax, get refreshed. We're back in school in a week, so enjoy. Take care. Bye-bye.